Welcome back to MFO, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. We're out on the water today, and we're going to do a brief explanation. I know I've had a couple of guys who've bought my boats over the years who've called me. They're just not used to running a hydraulic jack plate along with the hydraulic trim, power trim. And when you add a hydraulic jack plate, you're adding some variables to the things that you need to do while you're running your bass boat. So we're going to talk about these variables and how to adjust for them in today's episode. So if you've got a hydraulic jack plate and trim, you may want to stick around and watch this. Welcome back to Mark Fisher Outdoors, everybody. I'm Mark Fisher. All right, so if you've got a new bass boat and you are not used to running a boat that's got both a hydraulic jack plate and trim, there are some maneuvers or things that you need to pay attention to as you're driving and running your bass boat. So let's talk about, first of all, what each does. So we know that the trim will tuck the motor in. As you bring the trim down all the way, you're actually bringing the motor, you're tucking the motor up underneath the boat. Okay, it is not vertical when you've trimmed it down all the way. It's actually tilted in underneath the boat. And then when you trim it, what you're doing is bringing the prop up away from the boat closer to the surface, which what that really does, if you think about it, is that pushes the back of the boat down and the nose of the boat up. So the more your boat is trimmed up, the front of the boat will come up and ride higher in the water. Now, when we're talking about the jack plate, the jack plate really does two things. It raises and lowers the motor in the water. So when the jack plate is all the way down, obviously is as deep into the water as you can get it. And then as you raise it up, it pulls it up. So from a standpoint of what the jack plate does, there's really, in my opinion, two things that the jack plate does. One, if you are in shallow water when you're taking off or when you're driving, you can keep that prop up in its shallowest position by raising your jack plate. Lowers the odds or possibilities of you hitting something or bottoming out on the bottom and things like that. So let's kind of take a look at different scenarios and what you want to do. Right now I'm out here in deep water. I'm in 78 feet of water. So where do I want my jack plate? I want my jack plate all the way down, because putting it all the way in the water is exactly that's going to get me the best hole shot. Where do I want my trim? If I'm about to take off, I want my trim trimmed and tucked up all the way underneath the boat. So I've got my jack plate all the way down, I've got my trim all the way down, I've got the best hole shot when I go to take off. Now, get out of the hole shot like we just did, everything is down. Trim your motor, get it in the middle, get yourself to full speed there with the trim, then raise your jack plate until you find the sweet spot on your jack plate. For me, it's 12, okay? I've got settings 0 through 20. When I get to 12, that's my sweet spot on this Phoenix. So I know I'm going to start at 0 as long as I'm in deeper water. I'm going to get up on plane, and then I'm going to raise my hydraulic jack plate to 12 because that's my best spot on the hydraulic jack plate for torque, for speed, and for performance. If I go any higher, I'm starting to lose performance. Same with trim. I will trim up and down until I get to the sweet spot. This is on what I'm talking about right now is my absolute best settings to go on. That's assuming that the water's not choppy, that there's not waves, things like that. So I want to know where my best setting is based on my gauges. And once I know that, now I know how to work from there based on what the weather conditions or water conditions are, whether I want to go up or down from there. Let's talk about one other situation. So if I'm in shallow water, I've been out frog fishing, I'm in 2 feet of water, I'm back in the back of a creek or in a pocket or something like that, and now I want to get out of there. I don't want to idle 500 yards until the water gets deeper. So what I can do is I can raise my hydraulic jack plate, get it all the way up. I can still trim my motor down. I can get up on plane, and as soon as I get up on plane, I'm not going to go full speed, but then I can start to, as soon as I get into a little deeper water, I can start to lower my jack plate. That jack plate provides you the ability to get up on plane in shallow water without in the back of your boat stirring up mud and getting down deep in the mud. You can actually get on plane using that jack plate. That's one of the biggest benefits, in my opinion, on having that hydraulic jack plate. Being able to get out of shallow water and get up on plane in shallow water. Let's talk about very briefly riding in different types of weather conditions. Remember what we talked about with your trim. Your trim is going to, the higher up your trim is, it's going to bring your nose of the boat or the bow of the boat up. So if you're in flat, calm conditions, you want to have that nose up, get as much of the boat out of the water as you can. That doesn't mean you're at necessarily full trim, because again, you will exceed your maximum, and you'll start to hear the fact that you'll see it in your RPM, you'll see it in your speed, and then so just find your best possible running trim and know that that's where you should be when you're in good conditions. But if you're in choppier conditions, by trimming the motor down, you'll be able to keep the bow of the boat going into the waves, riding just over the surface of the waves, and the boat itself, the keel of the boat, will cut through the waves. It'll be much less bouncy doing that, and you'll just be riding through. But then again, if the waves get really bad, now you run the risk of spearing waves, which means now you want to trim up so that you keep the bow of the boat over those higher waves. It gets a little rougher. You have to slow down in order to be able to get through those. But that's how you use your trim and your hydraulic jack. Guys, I hope this was helpful. Let me know if I missed anything, and send me your comments. If you like this kind of content, please hit that subscribe button, the like button, and we will see you tomorrow for another episode of Mark Fisher Outdoors. Take care, everybody.